The first time I ate something from the trash can was on Monday, behind the drugstore, and the banana was still yellow. I slept outside, and the medicine was long gone. I told myself it was just for today, just until my Social Security check came through. But the next day I found out my grandson had taken the money. Now he had power of attorney over me. He had a key. He had my PIN number, so he could pick up my prescriptions. My trust was like an extra coat he could throw on when he needed warmth. "Grandma, I'll take care of your bills," he'd say, kissing my cheek and putting my card in his wallet. "Don't worry." The next morning, the balance was $23.18, and the rent bill on my door was getting higher and higher. When I asked, he stared at the TV and said, "It's complicated. I'll fix it next week." His voice had the soft, practiced patience people use with crying children and barking dogs. "Don't worry so much. You're safe with me safe." While I stood in line at the church pantry pretending to buy groceries for a neighbor, he posted photos of dinners I claimed I couldn't stomach. Steak, cocktails, weekends at the lake. He said the bank was messing up the transfers, that he took on some of the expenses, that I don't understand how this works now. I watched his hands as he spoke, the way they tucked his phone away, turned the screen away, the way they didn't shake. How could my grandson do this to me? I asked one night at the kitchen window, watching our reflection. My gray braid, his baseball cap, blur in the dark. He shrugged in the glass and said, "You raised me to survive, Grandma." "That's what I do." I nodded once. Then I pulled a coffee can from the back of the cabinet where he never looked and counted the things he didn't know about. Envelopes, notes, dates. I borrowed the patience of a librarian and learned how to print statements from the public computer. I learned how to freeze an account with one conversation and unfreeze it with another by typing a single letter. I wrote down every withdrawal next to his name. I learned the hours of the teller, Miss Ruth, who Miss Ruth, and watches people's eyes when they lie. He thought he'd taught me helplessness, but I'd survive longer winters. By the time he asked me for a gas-only card, I'd changed more than just the PIN. I'd changed the ending. The morning he said, "Grandma, trust me." It was raining so hard the gutters were humming like boiling kettles. He was standing in my kitchen in a wet hoodie, shaking raindrops onto the linoleum, smiling that quick, bright smile he saves for nurses and traffic cops. "I'll run to the pharmacy," he said, taking my wallet like he was taking out the trash. "Your pills, your milk, the bread you like. I'll put gas in your car. I'll sort it all." He said it like a blessing. I believed it because believing is cheaper than suspicion, and because I raised him from a baby who slept on my chest after his mother left for a treatment program she never finished. He was my routine, my second chance, my excuse to keep the lights on. When he walked back in 90 minutes later with a plastic bag that held one loaf of the wrong bread and a single bottle of milk, he kissed my cheek and slid my debit card into his own wallet with a motion as smooth as a pocket magician. "Don't worry," he said. "You don't need to stress over receipts." For a while, I didn't, until the first time the bank said insufficient funds, and the landlord's notice folded on my doormat like a little white threat. Until the night at the pharmacy dumpster when the banana was still yellow and my trust was bad. Back then, my world was the grocery list, the prayer list, the pill organizer. I knew the names of drugs and neighbors' dogs. I kept time by the washer's spin cycle and the nightly weather report. I had nothing to hide except my disappointment. It made me slow, but it also made me careful. So when my grandson started keeping his phone face down and his jacket zipped in July, I wrote dates on the calendar. Not in the square where others could read. In the border, small, a code for myself. S for short. Long slash for cash. Circle for a withdrawal I didn't make. It is amazing how quickly a person can become fluent in a new language when hunger is the teacher. He liked to leave the house with a promise and return with a reason. They double-charged the card, he'd say, setting down takeout that I hadn't asked for and he hadn't paid for. The bank takes a day to correct it. Or, the ATM was glitching. Or, I lent Jason a little to get his car out of impound, but don't worry, he's good for it. He would pat my shoulder and call me his angel, as if flattery could push back the rent deadline like the tide. The day Social Security hit at 6:01 a.m., he left at 6:05 and returned at 6:56, smelling of gasoline and fried eggs, placing a styrofoam container in front of me, like an offering. I said thank you even as the text alert buzzed. 2 transactions, then a third. At 7:12, the balance was a number that could not buy eggs. When I looked up, he was talking to the dog we don't have, the one he remembers from when he was 7. It's complicated, he said. You know money's tight. I'll fix it next week, I tried to keep my voice steady. How could my own grandson do this to me? He didn't look at me. He looked through me like a weather report you hear and forget. You raised me to survive, he said. That's what I'm doing. I washed the breakfast plate and dried it and put it away with the other 3, thinking about survival. It is not a skill that lives in the young alone. Mine is older and quieter and learned by turning 1 chicken into 3 dinners. That afternoon, I took the coffee tin from the back of the cabinet and emptied it onto the table. There was less than I'd hoped. Loose bills, a few quarters, notes I'd scribbled to myself and tucked away. A photograph of my grandson at 6 in a paper crown he made at school. I stared until my throat softened. Then I put the photo back and stood up. The library still smells like paper and lemon oil. I told the librarian I needed to learn how to print bank statements, and she showed me without asking why. The printer chugged and coughed my panic into pages. I slid them into a manila folder and used a pencil to mark the transactions that lined up with his excursions, the gas station on 4th, the liquor store he calls the market, the ATM inside the bar with the neon fish in the window. I learned to freeze an account by speaking in a patient voice to a woman in Nebraska who called me Han and told me exactly which letter to send and which box to check. I learned to open a new one at the credit union 2 bus stops away. I bought a $10 phone that only texts me when money moves. I put a lockbox at Miss Ruth's teller window. She is my age and calls me Miss Ruth, even though it is my name. She watches eyes when people lie. I don't mind keeping something for you, she said. My drawer's seen worse than a neighbor's emergency. I wrote every withdrawal in my notebook. Date, time, amount, location. His name beside it in tidy cursive, like a teacher grading a test. I taught myself to print in capital letters in case the police needed it neat. I still ate from the trash twice. I am not telling you to be pitied. I am telling you because truth should cost something, and because shame is cheaper when you pay it forward. The second time, a woman my age came from the back door and pressed a paper sack into my hands. They throw out good food, she said, angry at air. Take this. Don't come back here at night. The bar boys get loud. I thanked her and carried the bag like it was glass. Inside were 3 bananas, a yogurt, a pack of crackers, and a note. Come to church on Wednesday. Pantry opens at 10. I went. The line tasted like gasoline and coffee. The man handing out numbers had a blue ring tattooed around his middle finger, the permanent shadow of a lost wedding band. He told me his name was Alvarez, and that he'd been a foreman once, and that what goes around comes around slower than we want but faster than we fear. He laughed without joy and loaded my cart carefully. You're Miss Ruth, he said. I nodded. People know you from the bank. You help everyone else. He went quiet. You all right? I will be, I said. I'm collecting proof. He looked at me properly then. A kind of respect clicked into place like a seatbelt. If you need someone to witness anything, he said, I got eyes. The first twist came on a Monday with a letter that looked official. Thick paper, window envelope, the heavy ink of federal print. Social Security Administration. I made tea before I opened it, because tea helps you breathe. The letter said they had received my change of address request and my application for a representative payee, and that further documentation from my doctor would finalize the process. I hadn't moved. I hadn't asked for anyone to manage my benefits. I stood so quickly the chair scraped. The house seemed to tilt. On the second read, I saw the address they planned to send future mail to, a P.O. box 2 towns away. My grandson's friend Jason uses a car wash there. I had a photograph of Jason from the day he helped my grandson move my old TV, carrying it like a trophy in a football game. His neck tattoo is a set of dice showing snake eyes. I called the number on the letter. At the local office, a woman with a voice like a ruler said, "You'll need to come in with your identification and this letter. We'll flag your account and require in-person verification for any payee changes." She paused. "Bring any documentation you have that suggests someone is trying to misuse your funds. We'll add notes." I put the letter in my folder. Then I made 3 more copies. I called the doctor whose name was typed tidy at the bottom of a form I had not signed, my doctor for 8 years, who has seen me through pneumonia and grief. "I never wrote a letter for a representative payee," she said, voice tightening. "Come in tomorrow. We'll document this." I took the bus to the Social Security office. The line was long and quiet in the way of government lines, people holding their business in their hands, sighing when the number on the screen rolled forward. When it was my turn, the clerk read the letter, read my driver's license, looked at my face, then leaned forward. "Do you know the person who filed this?" she asked. "My grandson," I said. It hurt less to say it plain. She typed, "We'll flag your account and require you in person for changes. If someone tries again, it will ping this note." She slid a fluorescent form across the counter. "This is an allegation of misuse. If you want to file a formal complaint, this starts that trail." "Do you coordinate with the bank?" I asked. "Sometimes," she said, "but the police are faster when there's immediate harm." The second twist came when I called the bank's fraud line, and the man on the recorded voice said, as if telling a bedtime story, "If you have allowed someone access to your card and they have used it without your approval, we may not be able to classify this as unauthorized." Permission, it seems, is a coat that, once worn, fits anyone who tries it on. I closed my eyes. I saw my hands months ago, warm with trust, tapping my PIN while he watched. I saw him memorize the rhythm, a 4-beat song. I needed to take back permission in a way that mattered. I went to the courthouse annex and asked the woman at the information desk where a person files for a restraining order. "Domestic," she said, rubbing lotion into her hands. "Upstairs, purple forms." "The judge is on Thursdays," I thanked her. She glanced at me. "You okay, honey?" "I'm making a map," I said. It was the closest I could come to an answer. That afternoon I asked Mr. Daniels, the branch manager, for a meeting. He is 68 and wears his suits like they're his armor. He used to coach my son's baseball team. He shook my hand like a pastor and listened without interrupting. When I set my folder on his desk, he flipped through it slowly. "You should teach a class," he murmured. "Half our customers don't keep records like this. I need you to tell me what is evidence and what is just a grandmother's grief," I said. He turned the pages back toward me and tapped the printouts. "These timestamps, matched with withdrawals, and your notes showing you removed consent, this is evidence. But you'll want more than a day-by-day story. You'll want the moment he continues after you clearly tell him to stop. The after. Can you give me an after? I can, I said. I will. We planned the trap at his desk like we were planning a church bake sale. We chose a date, the next deposit day. We would let the old account sit alive with a handful of dollars and the appearance of habit. I would tell my grandson in writing and on a recorded line that he no longer had permission to use my card, my account, or my benefits. I would deliver the words calmly, clearly, and ask, "Do you understand?" He would say yes, or he would say a thing that means yes. If he touched it after that, it would be theft under our state statute, Mr. Daniels said, and the cameras in the lobby would watch him do it. After he takes the bait, Mr. Daniels said, and his voice got up quiet, "Do you want us to call the police while he's here, or would you prefer to pursue it through a detective later?" "I would prefer him to meet the consequences like a door he has to open with both hands," I said. Not a surprise. A certainty. He nodded. "I'll have security coordinate. We'll be discreet. And Ruth," he paused, used my name gently, "I'm proud of you." I did not cry. Not then. The night before the deposit, I cooked. It gives the hand something to do when the mind moves too fast. I made stew from pantry vegetables and biscuits from scratch. The kitchen warmed. The rain returned. When he came home, he was wet and smiling like a salesman. "What smells so good, Nana?" he said, going to the oven as if praise were his idea. He ate 2 bowls, wiped his mouth with the back of his hand, and asked if I had my card just for gas. My heart hurt once, a muscle spasm under my ribs. I smiled with my eyes, the way I used to when he was little and trying to get away with something small. I stood, took my purse from the hook, and set the wallet on the table. I took out the card, held it on my palm. He reached for it with practiced care. I pulled my hand back. "I need you to listen," I said. He looked like a boy found in a candy aisle. "I'm changing some things. You no longer have permission to use my card, to access my account, or to use my benefits. I will handle my bills. I will get my prescriptions. If you need anything, you ask me and you wait for my answer. Do you understand?" He laughed first. Then he frowned. "What?" "Nana, I've been helping you. You've been taking from me," I said. "The helping ends now. Do you understand?" I rested my phone on the table, face up, recording. He glanced at it. "Nana, don't be dramatic," he said, voice dropping to the patient tone he uses when he wants me to be quiet. "You're safe with me." "That is not an answer," I said. "Do you understand?" He looked at the card. "Yeah," he said. "I hear you." "I'll put that in writing," I said. I had the letter already stamped. "I'll hand you a copy and mail one to myself. I'll take a picture of it. No more confusion." He rolled his eyes, then softened, stepping forward to kiss my forehead. "You're overthinking," he said. "It's okay. I love you." He went to bed. I sat at the table until the house quieted down and the refrigerator's hum was the only engine left. I texted Mr. Daniels. He understands. Not an hour later, the new account pinged with the direct deposit. 5 minutes after that, the old account pinged with an attempted withdrawal that failed. 10 minutes after that, the security camera at the ATM inside the bar saw my grandson try a second machine, then a third. At 7:02 a.m., the bank lobby cameras watched him walk in, ball cap low, hoodie up, face open in that blank way boys learn when they think rules are optional. He tried my card at the teller counter. Miss Ruth watched his eyes as he lied and said, "Nana asked me to take out 100. She shook her head slowly, almost tenderly, and press the button that lets security know the plan's clock has run. I arrived 3 minutes later, breath short, coat button wrong. Mr. Daniels met me at the door. The officer he'd called, Detective Morrow, a man in his late 50s with a thick folder under his arm and a wedding ring worn thin, stood at a polite distance, letting me set the tone like a guest of honor at a painful party. My grandson smiled from the chair by the potted ficus, the same smile he used when asking teachers for extensions on homework he hadn't started. "Nana," he said, standing, arms wide. "There's been a misunderstanding?" "There has," I said. I sat. "You misunderstood the word no." Detective Morrow introduced himself and asked if we could talk. My grandson sat again, legs spread in the casual way men sit when they want to own space. He listened with his head tilted, then shook it as if the facts were rain and he was a dog coming in from the yard. "Nobody's pressing charges," he said to the detective with confidence that made my hands go cold. He turned to me. "You're not going to do that." "Tell him I opened the folder and slid the papers onto the table. The letter to him telling him to stop. The bank statements. The Social Security letter with the false change of address. The doctor's affidavit saying she did not request a payee. The text message where he said, 'I hear you.' The video clip of him at the ATM that Mr. Daniels' assistant had already cued." Detective Morrow didn't rush. He tapped the folder gently. "Son," he said, "not cruel, not kind. Just the word a man uses when he's lived long enough to mean it. You're over the threshold for misdemeanor. If your grandmother wants to pursue this, we'll do that. If she wants to seek a protective order, we'll do that too. Either way, you need to stop today." My grandson looked at me then, properly, for the first time in months. "You're going to ruin my life," he said. He said it like a prayer. "You started without me," I said. I kept my voice level. "You can help finish." He stood too quickly. The chair legs squealed on the tile. He put his hands in his pockets and took them out again like he wanted to throw something but didn't have anything left. "I did it for us," he said, and his voice broke on the second word. "No," I said. "You did it to us." We signed papers. I asked for a civil protective order that covered my address, my accounts, and any attempts to change my mail or benefits. The judge signed it 2 days later, a woman with gray hair and a precise way of speaking. "I will include a warning about third-party actions," she said, pen moving. "No friends, no cousins, no little messengers." I filed a police report. I made 3 more copies for the folder. My grandson left the bank with his head down and his hood up, brushing past the same security guard who had once let him sit on his stool and pretend to spin when he was 10. The next week we learned he had done one more thing. In my name, he had taken out a payday loan, using my routing number and my address, $900 with an interest rate that could eat a car. I received the letter only because I had flagged my mail with the post office and made them hold it for pickup with my identification. The man at the counter asked me the security question like a riddle. I answered my maiden name and walked home on legs that wanted to sit on the curb. Detective Morrow took the new papers with the patience of a man who has seen every version of foolishness. "This is good," he said, meaning the evidence, not the act. "We can add identity theft. I'm going to speak to the prosecutor. Do you want jail?" I closed my eyes. Behind them, my grandson is 3 in footy pajamas, cheeks warm, hair sticking up like grass. He is 12, punching a boy who called me a name from a car window. He is 17, crying on my porch after a girl he adored left without taking her plant. He is 21, lifting my groceries as if they were a promise. "I want to stop," I said. "I want a line. I want money paid back and work done to balance what he took. I want him kept away from my door until he learns how to knock with respect. Morrow nodded. Restitution with a plea. Probation. Protective order stays. Community service is likely. Jail is a lever. We can keep it on the table. We use church and law like twin rails. Pastor Elise sat with me at her office with the plants surviving in the window and the hum of the copy machine in the next room. Her hair is short and gray, and she plays the piano like she's angry that God needs coaxing. What will give you back your breath? She asked. Agency, I said. The power to open my own front door and know what I'll find. Then that's our ask, she said. We'll build a safety circle. Not a sentence for him, a fence for you. We made lists. Who needs a copy of the protective order? Which teller to use? Which days to avoid the parking lot? Who can walk me to the car if my hands are full? I told Alvarez at the pantry I might need him to witness a thing. He nodded like a soldier told about a mission too late to be scared. I got eyes, he said again. The plea hearing felt like sitting exam that no one wants to pass. My grandson stood with a public defender and answered questions with yes and no and yes, Your Honor, and the judge spoke as if speaking could stitch a wound. He pleaded guilty to a misdemeanor theft and a misdemeanor identity fraud. The felony stayed sheathed like a knife the prosecutor could bring out if he lacked manners during probation. Restitution was ordered in monthly payments that would take 2 Christmases to clear. He was assigned 200 hours of community service at the pantry where I had once stood in line, and at the senior center where Miss Ruth's sister teaches yoga on chairs. Afterward, he looked for me in the hallway. The protective order meant he could not approach, so he stood at the far end and lifted his hand halfway, like he was checking a light for heat. I lifted mine halfway back. I am not without mercy, but I am not without memory. The house got quieter. I changed the locks and kept the spare with Alvarez across the street. I changed the pin and then changed it again until only my fingers knew the rhythm. I planted herbs in the little container garden he thought was a waste of water. I replaced the tall kitchen chair he had broken and never fixed. My body remembered hunger and softened around the old routines of enough. I coached 2 women at the church on setting up text alerts, on naming a second, safe person at the bank who can vouch for a sudden freeze, on telling the pharmacist, no, my grandson will not pick up my pills. I will. We wrote our own names on our own lines. We practiced saying no, and then practiced staying quiet after the word, letting it stand like a door that doesn't need explaining. The third twist came from the past. My daughter, the one who left, the one whose absence made a boy into my second chance, called from a number I didn't recognize. Her voice is a thinner version of my own, frayed at the edges. I heard, she said. I heard about the court. I heard about him. News moves faster than forgiveness, I said before I could stop myself. I'm sorry, she said, and the words sounded like an apology for more than one thing. He called me, wanted me to say you were sick to help with the payee. I hung up. The breath. I didn't know I'd been holding released. One sin she had not committed. We sat in the silence together. 2 women the world expects to smooth over the rough. I need to earn my way back, she said. You do, I said. Start on Wednesdays at 10. The pantry can use your hands. She came. Alvarez gave her a cart and a job and a nickname within the hour. I watched my daughter lift boxes, her eyes on the task, not on me. She said please and thank you. She said nothing more to me than good morning and do you want coffee? Sometimes a second chance looks like a cardboard box full of cans. My grandson made his payments, late, but they came. He worked his hours. Morrow called once to say he'd shown up at the senior center on time and stayed late to move tables. He's quiet, Morrow said. Quiet can be good. The day I caught him on my street, he was walking on the opposite sidewalk, head down, hands in pockets. He saw me and froze like a deer, then stepped off the curb as if distance were a trick he could perform. The order said 100 yards. The road is 50. He kept to his side. He didn't cross. I got a job, he said, voice too loud for conversation, but not for confession. Construction. Union. This time. That's good, I said. I'm paying what I owe, he said. You are, I said. He looked at my hands. Maybe he remembered them breaking biscuits. Maybe he remembered them signing papers he slid in front of me. He put his hands up, palms out, like someone approaching a skittish animal. I'm not asking for anything, he said. I'm just telling you. Then tell me one more thing, I said. Why did you try to become my payee? Who told you to do that? He swallowed. Jason, he said. His cousin did it for his grandma. Said it was legal if you, say you're helping. His cousin is lucky he's not in jail, I said. And you are lucky I love you enough to make rules instead of goodbyes. He nodded, twice, like a man learning a dance he should have been taught years ago. I'll stay away, he said. I'll keep paying. Do that, I said. Keep paying. Keep away. Keep working. Learn to help without taking. He left. I watched him go. I don't know what story he tells himself about this. I know mine. Months passed. I slept. Sleep is forgiveness's little sister. The pantry became my Wednesday. I started a small class at the church called Tuesday Money Club because all good things sound less dangerous with a weekday in front of them. We sat in a circle and said, out loud, rude sentences we needed to learn. No, you may not have my card. No, I will not co-sign. No, I do not owe you this. We practiced saying these things to each other kindly. Then we practiced saying them to the air we imagined as men we loved who had learned how to step over us. The day the last restitution payment cleared, Miss Ruth put a handwritten note in the envelope with the receipt. It said, paid in full. Proud of you. I put the note on my refrigerator with the magnet that used to hold my grandson's drawings. Success feels different when you are 72. It's less fireworks and more a small lamp in a dark room, steady enough that you can cross without stubbing your toe. I walked it to the pharmacy on purpose that day, past the alley where the dumpster sits. The sun was out. The air smelled like cut grass and detergent. A woman stood near the back door, her hand hovering over the lid. She looked at me the way I once looked at that alley, calculating, embarrassed, hungry enough to think humiliation was an ingredient you could swallow if you held your breath. There's a pantry on Wednesday, I said. I handed her a card Pastor Elise had printed with the hours and the address. Tell them Miss Ruth sent you. She took the card and didn't meet my eyes. I don't want to be someone who needs help, she said. Neither did I said. Then I learned help is not the same as stealing. Only one of those grows back what it takes. She nodded once, a language I know. She put her hands together. Not prayer, preparedness. At home, the clock ticked, steady as a metronome. I made tea and sat at the table where I once counted envelopes and found photographs of a boy. The notebook that held my notes now holds other people's questions. How do I change my PIN? How do I switch a direct deposit? How do I tell him to stop? The answers are practical and dull and life-saving. You call this number. You bring this paper. You say these words. I am the owner. I am the one you call. No one else. Sometimes I dream of him at 7 with a scraped knee, crying because he fell out of a tree he had no business climbing. In the dream, I put a bandage on and say, Did you Did you learn? He nods, hiccups, promises to be more careful. In the morning, after those dreams, I stand at the sink and feel a grief that is neither sharp nor sweet. It just is, like weather. I dry my hands on a towel and think, I am still the person who would feed him if he were starving. I am no longer the person who lets him eat first every time and asks for the plate back later. On the anniversary of the day I ate from the trash, I made banana bread. I used walnuts and a little cinnamon. I wrapped 2 slices and left them at Alvarez's door with a note that said, "We made it out." He texted back a picture of his hand giving a thumbs up, the blue ring tattoo a bright line around his finger like a reminder that absence can be marked and honored without being filled. That afternoon, the Social Security office called me. Just a routine check to confirm my records. "We see a flag here," the clerk said, cheerful and bored. "Just confirming no changes to your payee." I laughed and it startled her. "No changes," I said. "No payee." "Good," she said. "That's good." "It is. It is ordinary and good. It is better than fireworks." The last time I saw my grandson close enough to count the freckles across his nose, it was at the Senior Center's Thanksgiving lunch where he was assigned to carry trays. He didn't see me at first. He was moving too quickly, focused on not dropping anything. When he did catch my eye, he lifted the corner of his mouth in a tired half smile. His hair was longer. His shoulders looked like a man's shoulders, not a boy's trying to fill a shirt. He set a plate in front of Mr. Daniels, who nodded at him. Then he moved on. I ate my turkey and my sweet potatoes, and I watched a room full of people be grateful for things the world forgets to notice. Chairs that don't wobble, coffee that is hot, a name called from a doorway with kindness. The band played a slow waltz, and a woman in a red sweater asked Morrow to dance. He said yes, stiffly, and she laughed and had a good time anyway. I went home and locked my door and sat at my table with my notebook. I turned to the last page and wrote, in the tidy cursive, I taught myself to trust. This is where it ends for him. This is where it begins for me. I have learned that revenge can look like a courtroom or a bank ledger, but the best kind is ordinary justice tied up with a little bow of competence. The next day, I helped a woman change her PIN and watched her shoulders drop when the receipt printed with the new last 4 digits. I walked with her to the bus stop. She showed me a photo of her grandson. "He's a good boy," she said, defending him against air. "He's just gotten lost." "Then make a map," I said, and we both laughed at how simple that sounded. At home, I made a list for myself and taped it inside the pantry door. The list is not for money. It is for love. It says, do not mistake love for permission. Do not confuse help with surrender. Do not bankrupt your future to pay for someone else's lesson. It says, you can be kind without being a fool. When the phone rings now and a young voice asks, "Can I borrow?" I say no. And then I wait through the scramble on the other end as the person learns that the world has edges again. When a clerk asks, "Do you have a payee?" I say, "I have me." And the clerk smiles like I told a joke, and I do not correct her, because I like the way it feels to make someone smile, and because the truth can wear many faces and still be honest. If you had told me a year ago that I would teach a class, file a police report, stand in front of a judge, and still have room left over in my heart for the boy who pressed my card into his wallet, I would have told you to mind your own business. Now I am telling you mine, because people like us keep our mouths shut until the cupboard is empty and our cheeks are hot with shame. We think loyalty is a lock we can't pick. It isn't. The key is in the coffee tin, behind the old recipe, next to the photograph of someone who made you tender and then made you strong. A week after the last restitution check, a letter arrived. No envelope, just folded paper slipped under my door. The handwriting was messy and young and familiar. "Nana," it said. "I'm not asking. I'm just telling. I'm clean. I'm working. I paid what I owe. I know that's not the same as payback. I'm learning the difference between help and taking. I don't expect you to forgive me. I just want you to know I heard you. I stood with the letter in my hands until my feet remembered the floor. I didn't cry. I put it in the folder with the rest because the story isn't just the bad. It's the proof that a person can change course. Certified mail for the heart. On Wednesday, I put 2 extra cans of peaches in my cart at the pantry. I don't like peaches much. My grandson does. I left them on the free table in the lobby where anyone can take without signing a name. I stood for a moment, then went back to my duties. A woman needed help with her form. A man needed help lifting his box. A teenager needed reminding not to cut in line. The kettle clicked off. I poured hot water over a tea bag and sat. The house held its breath, then released it, a small sigh in the studs. Outside, someone laughed, and for once it did not sound like a crack in the wall. I opened my notebook to a fresh page. How could my own grandson do this to me? Because I trusted him and didn't know where my boundaries were. How did I stop him? I learned the shape of my own name in the places where paper meets power. I said no and meant it. I gathered proof like rainwater and poured it where it would grow something. I asked for help without apologizing. I told the truth, even when it made me small. There is a particular silence that follows a storm. It is not empty. It is full of birds who decided to wait. I listened to that silence and believed, finally, that I had done enough. I put my pen down and reached for a slice of banana bread. It was good. It tasted like something saved.
My grandma told me this story. I have many more stories. Subscribe so you don't miss the most interesting things.